Alright, so now I have stuffed my 2 hands and my 2 feet. And I'm going to want to cut out 2 of all the other pieces. There's 2 of these large pieces. They're going to be the front and back of Mr. Negative. 2 long pieces, they're going to be the sides. And 2 small rectangles, which are going to be the top and bottom. What I want to do is take one of my large pieces and one of my side pieces and sandwich them together such that it's like this. You will notice that on these pieces there are notches, which, see the notch here, which basically just show where the middle is, and it just helps you line things up. Okay. I'm going to want to sandwich one of the hands between these pieces, pretty much right where the middle is, like that. And I'm going to pin them together. Again, when you sandwich the front and side pieces together, you want to make sure that the good sides are facing. So this is a bad side, inside here is the good side, good sides. There we go. I'm just going to go and sew this together. There we go. Look at that. Wow! And you pretty much want to do the same thing on the other side. A note about sewing this part is you want to be careful that your machine doesn't, if you're using a sewing machine, that the needle doesn't catch right on the wire. If you go slowly, then it won't be any trouble. And I'm going to go off and sew it again. Alright, now we got the front of Mr. Negative Man. I'm going to put the feet on next. Pretty much by taking one of the smallest pieces, putting it against the bottom, and sandwiching the feet. Let's see. See, a lot of work goes into the pinning. I'll just go over and sew this, but while I'm doing that, I might as well also sew the top piece. So I'm just going to pin that to his head. A little note about sewing is when you stitch a seam, you don't want to go all the way to the edge of the fabric. You want to stop about here to give it some seam allowance. Okay, now I've sewn up the bottom with the legs and the top at the head, and I've also sewn up all the sides, so it's kind of like a box. So if you turn him a little bit inside out, then wow, the negative man shape is really coming together. But wait, before you turn him inside out, you want to lightly clip all the edges so that when you do turn him inside out, the corners will be cleaner. By edges, I just mean corners. Of course, don't clip any of your sewing threads, so be careful. Alright. And another thing you want to do right now is to secure all these loose wires. What you can do is you can kind of take a long one and fold it back against the seam. If ones are too long, like this guy, then you can just clip them again and loop the edges, the ends. And then you'll want to secure them in place. So I'll just show you that. Get some yellow thread. Where's my needle? Ah. String up a needle with yellow thread, and tie a knot at, and double it up and tie a knot at the end like I showed you before. And you secure the wires to the seam. It's pretty simple. Just poke, don't stay within the seam allowance, so just use this extra little bit that won't show up on the outside. Poke it through. And take the thread and just kind of wrap it once around the wire, and then poke your needle through again on the same side. This is known as a whip stitch. So you see it's basically just kind of wrapping the thread around the wire so that it doesn't go anywhere except against the seam allowance. Okay, I'm going to stop that for a moment and turn him inside out, because once you're done securing all the threads, all the wires, you can decorate his face. Just going to put a little bit of stuffing so he has some more substance. Okay. I'm going to take my needle with my black thread Really should do this with a reference, but I'm just going to show you the technique for now. It's basically the same as the running stitch. Like what we're doing is basically drawing lines using stitching. I suppose you don't have to do this using thread. You can draw it on using fabric paint. But I find that it looks like sort of just drawing on using fabric paint, and it doesn't look very nice. So we're drawing with thread instead as a type of embroidery. It's similar to a running stitch, so let's say, oh, I'm just going to make a circle for now. A running stitch circle. Later I'm going to do this like when I have some reference. Okay. You can see how it's a circle. If you, well, I did a circle, but if you were to go backwards on this dotted line and make another dotted line, filling in all the dots, then you pretty much just get a straight line. Ouch! Rare footage of me poking myself. You see, we've got a circle. So now I can go, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find a reference of Mr. Negative or Negative Man, and I'm going to do his face properly. And I'm going to secure all the wires, and I'll see you soon. Okay, look at Negative Man here. He's got part of a face, and I'm getting his nose going. What you want to do with his nose is you want to kind of pin it on like this. But the important thing is, you see this edge? You want to kind of roll it in so that it gets caught underneath. Alright, I've made my first stitch that comes out the nose, the side of the nose. Oh, yeah, this is a different kind of stitching now. It's called the ladder stitch or the slip stitch. Okay, I'm going to make a stitch out the nose, then a stitch into the face, and out of the face, like this, if you can see it. And then as I pull my thread, I'm going to make sure that that little edge I talked about before is tucked in. I'm going to make another stitch into the nose, the side of the nose, and then out a little distance, also on the side of the nose. And then as I tighten, I will tuck the fabric in. The reason it's called a ladder stitch is because you form this kind of, well, you can hardly see it, but you form the rungs of the ladder using your thread. And doing this, you can't see the stitching from the outside. Okay, so I'm going to go around the nose, tucking as I sew, and I'll show you what happens once I begin to reach the nostrils.